Welcome to How to Be a Person, a podcast about life with me, your host, Giuliano Grimaudo. Kyle and Eli, what's up, guys?
Giuliano,
what is up, man?
What's up, man?
Thanks so much for coming on. I appreciate it. This is my first time having on two people at once.
Ooh, man.
It's an
First
honor.
for everything.
We get that a lot.
I was going to say, you guys probably get that a lot.
We do get that a lot.
Two people.
But we actually kind of like it because you can kind of back questions back and forth between everybody, and it just kind of makes it a fun experience. It's just a conversation, like
double
the
fun, the cost of one.
Exactly.
I love it. Well, I know you guys have listened to a couple episodes, but like basically I just like this whole podcast was inspired by like my time driving Uber where I just met someone and off the fly we ended up having really good conversations. So I don't really know much about you guys. I will say I saw something about solo retreats and I was like, what on earth is that? So I do want to talk about that today. But besides that, I don't know anything about you guys. So why don't you like introduce yourself so I can hear about you and also the listeners can too.
Absolutely. Kyle, you kick us off, man.
Yeah. As you know, my name's Kyle. I have a couple kids, couple boys, a 9-year-old and a 5-year-old.
Okay.
Married to my high school sweetheart. Always kind of laid a path with entrepreneurship ever since I was about 15. Eli and I have been business partners for, I don't know,
12 years.
12 years
Yep.
now.
Wow.
Just different ventures. And we live in Central Oregon, but we hail from California.
Wait, what? I don't know what this means.
Yeah, we love it. We moved up in Central Oregon for about 5 years ago. We're kind of from the Northern California area. It's kind of just a quick little dusting of information.
Oh, dust.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just a little teaser.
I mean, I think to kind of fill in the gaps, Kyle and I have been best friends and business partners through a couple different ventures, all kind of in different disciplines, but at the same core of it, it's been build a really good culture, build some good operations, and typically it is relevant around passion. There's some element of fulfillment, and we've always found it in all of the businesses that we've done. And we always, it starts there with a purpose, and then it continues to kind of drift and then move and figure out how we get there.
Okay,
So,
interesting.
Yeah, man. Kind of same story as Kyle, Sacramento area, Northern California. We met in at the end of college, or at least when I was graduating college, about 10, 12 years ago.
I was out of college.
Well, that answers my question. I was like, wait, are you guys brothers? I'm like, I don't think you are if you met at the end of college.
We get it, man. Yeah, that comes a lot too. But yeah, love action adventure sports. That's my calling. That's the thing that is my reset and brings me and kind of fills my cup from an adrenaline side, but it also creates massive mental clarity for me. So Central Oregon is a hub and a mecca for that. If you like to mountain bike, snowboard, ski, bike, climb, whatever that is, it is the spot.
This is what I've heard.
Yeah, it's cool, man. And you're in Arizona, right?
Yes, I am. I've been living in Arizona now for a little over 4 years, but I'm originally from Chicago.
Okay. Hey,
Nice, man.
Yeah, I moved to Arizona to get away from that cold.
Bet, dude.
Yeah. Are you in like this? Where are you at in Arizona?
So I'm in like the main valley of Phoenix, but I'm in like the southeast end of the valley. If anybody is familiar with Arizona, it's like basically the southeast end of Mesa.
Nice.
Oh, nice, man.
Yeah, no, we love it here.
Family.
Yeah. We went there for a concert and hung out in Scottsdale.
Yeah. My wife is actually born in Mesa.
Oh, well, there you go. That's so random.
She was born in Mesa?
Yes, she was born in Mesa.
Oh my gosh, that's
crazy.
wild.
That's a whole crazy story.
Wow.
So just so you know, Mesa is also like massive. So like if someone says I live in Mesa, like you could literally be like 5 minutes from them or like 40 minutes from them.
Yeah.
Like it's that big.
Yeah. It is now.
Wow.
That's wild.
Yeah.
Man. So what I was curious about what you just said. You guys, are you saying that like since you were younger, you guys started a bunch of businesses together over time?
Kinda, yeah. I mean, early 20s, we started some businesses together. We started in social network. We tried to compete with Instagram and Facebook. It was called Soul ID. And pretty much at the end of the day, it was a place where you can identify what you loved, what action sport or extreme sport. So we had everything from snowboarding to skateboarding to skiing and all this stuff. And we had we were launched in 192 countries. We had some of the top extreme sports, action sports athletes on there and photographers. And we built a
Wow.
really, really cool community. NBC Sports in 2000, was it 16? We were the fastest growing brand in action sports. So it was a really good run.
It was a great run.
Really fun. We got to meet some of our heroes. And,
yeah, man. We got to bump fists and shoulders and elbows and stuff with all of our childhood heroes. Like people, I don't know if you're in that world, but like Shaun White. Yeah. He was somebody. I actually found a video then. I was meant to tell you this. I don't know why I was looking it up, but I typed in Breckenridge. I don't know why I was on my phone.
And it popped up with a photo of him?
No, the video where I fist bumped him.
Fist bumped
him. Yeah, it was really cool. Yeah. So, cool
Ryan Sheckler was a big one.
Yeah, big skating disciplines. I mean, Ryan Dungey. There's some big names.
Greg Letzka.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about the passion thing you were saying earlier? Because that's really what caught my attention. Because I've been kind of on this kick lately because I've dabbled in a lot of different entrepreneurial ventures over the years as well, and as of late, I've really just been focusing on what it is I feel like doing, right? Instead of like, what's going to make me money? It's just like, what do I feel like doing? And then doing that thing,
100%, man.
When you can align the things that you love to do every single day and make money from it, it is an extremely fulfilling thing to do.
Yeah.
And so many people chase, the dollar through things that they don't enjoy doing. Mm-hmm. When you can actually do something that's like, it aligns with my core values and who I am, and I can do it for a living is huge. And we've always did that principle with our businesses. So we did that, and then we started a photography studio media company working with some of the top e-commerce brands in the world, from Disney and Target and just huge companies. And we fell in love with media and photography, and we were able to do that at a national scale, international scale, really. We built a pretty cool company through that, and that was our passion. It was an art that we loved, and we were able to build a business and do that as well, which entrepreneurship is a huge love of ours too. So
it is, man. And for me, like my gateway drug, I guess you can call this, into this world was I played golf growing up. Like that was my thing. And I'd hear over and over, what's really cool about golf, in my opinion, and I heard this from a meeting I was in the other day, is if you teach your kids how to get into golf at an early age, they learn how to converse with adults at a very early age. And I had never thought about that.
That's a good point.
Because it's an adult sport, and they learn how to, you're 4 or 5 hours with an adult, and you're a child. So how do you interact? But I would hear over and over on the weekends when I play golf is they would tell me, man, the worst round of golf is better than the best day of work. I was like, dude, how could you shooting 110 be better than your just best day of work? I don't get it.
110's a bad round of golf.
It's a horrible round of golf.
My score, man. If I hit 105, I'm having a good day. I don't know.
Not 110.
105, and about, six-pack in me, I'm doing all right.
And Juliano, I would hear that over and over, and that was like my spark, because I don't ever want to do something where I'm punching the clock and I'm looking forward to that Friday at 5 p.m. I don't want to do that. So when I got introduced at the end of college to this startup called Soul ID that we ended up co-founding with another 2 people, it was so cool to do something that I loved, my passion of action sports, and be able to do it at this level. That was, again, kind of my opening. And around that same time, I got involved too with another really cool entrepreneur, and he sold toilets online and made millions. And at that point I was like, how does this guy fill his cup? And I started, like, really,
how does he fill his bowl?
Yeah.
Good.
I was literally thinking the same. I thought you were teeing it up for yourself.
Come on. That was just so easy.
Man, this is Riverside. Otherwise, we would pause, start over, do it, scooter. So that was I started to see, like, how do people continue to go? And now to this day, like, he's still going, but I still see burnout. Yeah. And I was really focused on how do I not achieve burnout, and passion and fulfillment in our eyes were the things that keep people moving. Yes. And then obviously, like, taking care of yourself, that's something that our program, we'll talk about that here in a bit, but that's a huge part of it. The other side of the sword.
Yeah. See, this is the thing though, is that, like, I totally agree with you. I feel like burnout is really just doing too much of what you don't want to do. Because
Totally.
what I've found is that when I'm doing something I enjoy, which this seems obvious, right? But like for most people, they're thinking about like when they're doing something like fun on the weekend, okay, that they don't feel exhausted afterward. Duh. But what I'm saying is like when you find work that you feel the same way about, you don't end up more tired at the end of the day. This is the part that's crazy. Like, so
Yes.
I love talking to people. Okay.
Yeah.
And in restarting this podcast, because I did it a few years ago and I got like a dozen episodes under my belt and then I fell off and I just restarted it again. And my calendar has been booked like crazy. And so I'm just doing as many episodes as I can. But there's some days where I don't feel like it, right? I'm like, I'm exhausted. I don't feel like doing it. And then I get on, I have a conversation and I get off and I'm like, I feel so good. I have so much energy. It literally, when you are working and doing something that you are passionate about, when someone says it lights a fire in you, like it literally lights a fire in you. It doesn't feel like you're expending energy. It feels like when you do it, you have more energy at the end of it.
Exactly, man.
Totally
Exactly.
agree.
So how do you wrap up this passion for talking to people and how do you make money out of it? And if that is like your core thing that gives you that fire, gives you that energy, and ultimately, Giuliano, you show up as a better person for your partner, your business, every element of life, if you can figure that out. And that is just all self-discovery, man.
You're so right. And I feel like there's a certain nobility that people like in doing something that you don't like, right? To pay your bills. And you're like, yeah, okay, I get it. I get like, congratulations. Like you can suck it up and do stuff you hate. That's fine. But I don't find it noble. If anything, I'm like, you're screwing over the rest of your life, man. Because you don't get it. Like you said, when you're doing the thing that you're passionate about, everything else is better. Every other part of your life is better.
Yeah, I've never understood it. I've honestly always tried to, because I've always just had businesses, and people talk about the American dream, saving all this money, working 3 or 4 different careers, retire when you're 67, and just getting by after that. That's the American nightmare in my eyes. I don't want to live that. I don't want to spend 40 years of my life miserable when it's like the pinnacle of my life, when I'm in my prime with my kids and doing that. Ugh, that's a nightmare.
The American Nightmare. That's the title. That should be the title of our next book.
Yes.
The American Nightmare. I like it. But you know what's interesting too is because I will say this, like obviously you guys are entrepreneurs. I've always been very entrepreneurial. Yeah. I think someone can find this in a job. But what I will say is that I think that most people working a job, it's not because they found their thing. You know what I mean?
Entrepreneurship is not for everybody. Like by far, you have to have so much grit and thick skin and be able to deal with some really brutal stuff, like things that could be traumatic for most people. And if safety and comfortability is for you, and what you love to do is wrench on machines all day long, like that's you. You don't need to think about doing the business part of it, and that's perfect. You can make a good living. But
sometimes I almost wish I loved something that was a job, because it would be that much easier.
I know. Cool. I know. Just find some joy in it, man.
But there's something to be said though with that. If you can do that for a living, and it's something that like presents a new a new challenge every day, right? Like a mechanic. I think of a mechanic. Those people, but that's not
those
bad.
people.
But like they have a new challenge every day, and I'm sure that fuels them. They love to figure out what's wrong with each vehicle, and so I can see that perspective. I can see it.
And I mean, that was something that we encountered with the media company.
Yes.
So Giuliano, this media company that we created, I got really involved in e-commerce. I built a pretty decent sized outdoor venture brand.
How many SKUs was it?
350. And we sold online. We sold through eBay, and website, direct to consumer. But in the middle of that company, he went off and he had built his a portrait studio in town. And the fusion between my e-commerce background and his media background built a company called Results Imagery. And my problem was I couldn't find a good e-commerce photographer to take a photo of my snowboard wax tuning kit. And you look around and you look for, okay, if I'm going to get product photos, I'm going to go to my like local portrait photographer, wedding photographer. That's not who I'm looking for. So
Yeah.
we build this business where you ship your product to our studio and we handle it. We're basically like a fractional creative director.
Yeah, I love that.
Creative director. So through that, same thing Kyle just said, every single day, it was a new product in the studio.
New project.
It could be everything from a sponge to a tent to a phone case. Like every day it was everything you could think of.
Really?
And let the mind wander.
Yeah.
And that's what that created excitement in the beginning. It was like, dude, this is new, different, fresh every single day. Yeah. So I love that point.
It was a cool business. We did that for about 6 or 7 years.
Yeah.
But after a while, your creative genius kind of slows down, and
sure,
you do get burnt out, and then you kind of say, well, what's next? What did we learn from this business, and what's next?
See, I love that. I think that this is so funny because this keeps happening. So just a little bit of background. I've made like a few courses over the years that I put together, and then I just never sold them for some reason. And in talking about, hey, how can I make money while I'm doing what I'm doing? They popped in my head again. I was like, let me go look at these courses. And one of them that I made is called Habit Hacks. And it's about just straightforward ways of like creating new habits in your life. Right. And I had a podcast guest on, and then, we started talking about habits. Like randomly, she brought it up, and I was like, oh, that's so funny because I just re-released this course. And now I just started going through another one that I made that's called Discover Your Purpose. And it's funny because what you just said was exactly it's like in the video, where I think this is from even my own experience. I used to feel like this too, where you feel like you have to find like your purpose, as if your purpose in life is one single thing, when in reality, this is just from my experience. What I believe is that I feel like your purpose is more about how you approach life and like the energy that you bring to life, because you can bring that energy to anything you do. And then ultimately you're just following, well, what do I feel like doing right now? What do I feel drawn to right now? And so I love that you said that, because you can do stuff and you can go at it like super hard and not get burnt out because it's lighting a fire in you. But there's probably going to be a point where it's not anymore. And that's okay. Like, it's okay to be like, hey, this doesn't light me up anymore. What's next?
Exactly.
Yeah. The alignment of what your purpose is. It's what is the vehicle that you're going to use to fulfill that purpose. Right. And a lot of people that use it through their businesses.
Totally. And yeah, absolutely. And on that note, I wanted to talk a little bit more about that intrinsic motivation that you typically are starting off with. Like, there should be an underlying intrinsic motivation between your purpose and the business. And when you can connect those two, that's when the real fire, that's when the real stuff starts to happen.
Totally.
And the purpose alignment is stuff that we talk about day in and day out. And when we talk about transitioning and, hey, this is not my thing anymore, like you just said, Giuliano, that requires an amazing acumen and foundation of personal really development, but also personal awareness or self-awareness. And I think a lot of people struggle with that range, and they stay and they get burnt out, versus acknowledging that trigger. Like, hey man, I'm starting to feel a little burnt out here. Is this what we want to do? Kyle and I had that conversation multiple times. Like, we're going to sell, we're going to close. What are we doing here?
Yeah. Being proactive to that than reactive until it gets too late. That makes sense. Thing to have awareness. And as you mature and as you go through different businesses or different parts of your life, you're able to, really respond to times of adversity or burnout quicker. Call it resilience, you could call it whatever, but it's really important once you really fine tune that muscle in your mind to kind of pick those different triggers up and know when they're happening. And it's typically patterns that start jumping up at you, that you can kind of start to go like, okay, I'm starting to see this. I'm waking up not wanting to do this. That's pretty. But you just start seeing small things that you start picking up, and it could take a while until you can finally transition out. But once you do, it is an amazing feeling.
It's so funny. Yeah. Cause so many times, right? Like, I mean, tell me if I'm wrong, but I feel like the general like message as you're growing up is like, never quit.
Oh,
don't quit. But I could say from quitting a lot of stuff, quitting feels real good. Like, when you're ready to quit something and you quit it, like, it's one of the best feelings in the world.
For sure.
Absolutely.
For sure.
It's huge.
Well, and I think too, it's important that people get that permission.
Oh,
Like sometimes you almost need to hear it from somebody else that like, dude, it's okay to quit. Like whoever told you it's not, just understand like it's fine. It's okay to be like to say that you're gonna do something and then get to a point and be like, you know what? I don't want to do that thing anymore. Because I think for me that was my issue. Was I whenever I would do something, I would get so excited. I would literally tell everyone, right? I'd be like, I'm now a graphic designer. Do you know anybody who needs graphic design? Right. And it was just like everyone would know. And actually, it's a funny story. So when I was dabbling in graphic design, there was a photographer I knew who wanted a logo designed and she wanted a new business card. And what I was going to charge her, she was like, I don't have money, but I'm about to sell this camera for the same amount that you're charging me for this. Like, do you want to just do a trade?
Wow.
She traded me her camera. And like by that weekend, I was telling everyone I'm a photographer.
yeah.
and that weekend I had a wedding booked.
Oh wow.
So what? So like I'm saying all this just to say like that was me. I was always like, what do I feel like doing? And like I would jump into this next thing, but I always had this like guilt because it was like, oh man, I just told everybody that this is what I do, but now I don't feel like doing that anymore, and I feel drawn to this. And so I'm only saying all this because I feel like anybody listening, like if you need permission, like we'll give it to you, bro. Like just. It's okay. You said you were going to do it. You changed your mind. That's all right. Like, that's okay.
The only person judging yourself, the only person judging you is yourself. Yeah. And what we like to call that is spotlight syndrome. We all think the spotlight is on us 24/7. We're on stage and everyone is paying attention. No one gives a shit about you. No one's paying attention to your reality because they're paying attention to themselves because the spotlight's on them. And so when you can actually get through that and just like, I know no one's really focused on me, it builds a lot of confidence.
100%.
And it just builds just like this kind of this attitude and care of moving forward. Just like, all right, rip the Band-Aid, move forward, go. Because most likely the next thing you got coming up is just even more powerful and something you want to share, and it could affect people and impact in different ways, which has always kind of
100%
happened to us, which 100%. Is exciting.
There's always positive ways to flip that too. Is like, Juliana, like that just to me sounds like an incredibly curious individual. And you talked about when you're a child and when you're a kid, you're saying don't quit. When we were a kid, we were so curious and our imagination was wild. And we got into so many things. We tried so many things. We failed at so many things. Like, why don't we do that now? Yeah. So your curiosity is actually a huge positive in my book. And you could always pivot it and push it like that. And you're taking risk. A lot of people don't take risks. They just stay comfort in their desk job. You're saying you're a photographer, you're figuring it out. You're sitting here in your graphic designer, figuring it out. And that's huge, man. That's huge. That's a huge personality trait of curiosity and risk and ability.
Well, it took me a long time to come to that realization myself, because that's how I feel now too. Like to me, like it's 100% an asset. Like I totally own it, and that's how I live my life now. But I look back and because I agree with you about the spotlight syndrome thing, but what I will say is there were a lot of people that knew me who would like they would be like, pull me aside and be like, hey man, we gotta talk. Like you're being real impulsive. Like you're doing one thing and then you're doing another thing. So like I agree with the spotlight thing, but I will say like there were people who they were well meaning, but like they weren't looking at it in a positive light, right? So they were like, you're being impulsive. Well, now I look at it and I'm like, I'm just decisive. Like it's you were talking earlier about self-awareness. It's like I'm just aware that I'm done with this other thing and I'm ready to move on to something else. At the time I didn't. I remember feeling so bad. I was like, oh, they're so right. I really shouldn't be so impulsive. Like I need to make better decisions,
Totally.
And I hope that helps somebody, because I know like I'm probably not the only person that someone's pulling aside and telling them they're being impulsive when in reality, like they need to own that shit,
Jeez, here we go.
Here we go.
Dude, I wish I had like these down. I should put little things that I could hit one of these and just make a sound. Like when you do that. Like that little...
Yeah.
Oh
that's
man.
Good.
So tell me a little bit about what you guys do, because I'm not, like I said, I don't really know. I know you guys have a podcast too. And tell me about it.
We've run a podcast together for the last 8 years. We've evolved it a couple times, and we have met hundreds, close to thousands of thought leaders through our podcast. And we've done hundreds and hundreds of episodes. And it was an amazing podcast. But what it did is it actually built us this little audience over the years. And now what we're doing, it really relates and it mashes well. And again, you don't really know why you're doing something in the current state. Year one of that podcast, we had no idea why we were doing the podcast for the most part, but now it's crystal clear why.
Branding.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
this was 16.
Yeah.
You know, I was like, oh, we're just like branding. What we were
Yeah.
doing, you know?
Presence.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. And now we've really, again, followed this journey, and the whole podcast really, like, in it, if you go back and listen, it talks about our journey and our experiences and things we're going through at the time, and trying to be that light for lighting somebody's path along the way, kind of like you're doing, man. And through that, we had some massive peaks and valleys in our career, business career, personal traumas that shaped what we're doing today.
Yeah.
And we can dive into that too, but you asked what we do. So we run a self-guided solo retreat program. And who we work with typically is people that are, a lot of it is business owners and entrepreneurs, again, our audience. So that's kind of connecting the dot there. But people that are overwhelmed, lacking clarity, so they're foggy. They don't know what their purpose or core values are. Again, we've talked about our passion behind that, and you can see it in this program. And how to disconnect. Yeah. So when people come out of our program, they're gaining a ton of clarity and insight on their next step, next chapter, their identity. They're also learning how to disconnect. And we do that. The best way we've done that is through a 3-day self-guided solo retreat. We ship a tangible box. It's a self-guided solo retreat in a box. A lot of people will go out in the woods with a journal and not know what to do. So we've created the bumper lanes for you to go out in a self-guided journey. It's a choose your own adventure kind of thing. And you go to a place of peace, tranquility, stillness, whatever that might be for you. And you go through a guided experience, workbooks, meditations, journal prompts, exercises.
This is amazing. I'm sorry, I have to stop you and just tell you, like, this is amazing. I've never heard anybody do anything like this. But I love it because what you said before about the disconnect, like that. So I've gone and like we'll go camping or something like that. Like, disconnect is super valuable. And in my head, I'm like, okay, but if you're giving them a self-guided thing, like, how are they supposed to disconnect? Don't they gotta like watch the course or something? But you're giving it to them in a box, so it's like a physical, tangible thing. They don't have to be connected to the internet.
You don't. We want you away from that. It's a digital.
Yeah. And so through this process of the 3 days, there's different topics every day. And it's actually sealed because as humans, we are really always wanting to go faster.
Yeah.
And we need to teach ourselves how to slow down. And that's just how we operate. And so we seal each day. You can't open it till the beginning of each day. And the first day is all about self-reflection, reflecting on who you are, the things that you've gone through, the emotional burdens that you hold, and the stresses, and why you're feeling so overwhelmed.
Limiting beliefs.
And limited beliefs. And then we go into the second day of self-discovery, discovering, you know, where you align with your purpose in life and so much more. And then the third day is all about vision crafting. Now that I know all this good stuff, where could I be heading with it in life? And I think I have this identity that I've been living with for so long. What is it really that I wanted to align with, to move forward with? And how do I build that mental fortitude and continue forward to be able to really foster that? And then we have a 90-day mastermind after that. And the mastermind is built so you don't backslide. You have accountability. Because we've read the books, we've done the courses, we've listened to the podcasts, we've gone to the speaking engagements and the seminars, and you're stoked for like a week.
Yeah.
You're on a complete high. You're like, this is the new me. And then what happens? You go back to your old self slowly. And then because you don't have accountability and you don't have it in a community way is really what you need. And in order to really make sure to remove that backsliding that can happen.
I feel like it's so rare to come across something that I haven't come across before that I'm still just like, it's amazing. Like, I love this. It's so good.
Yeah. Thank you, man. It's really cool. It's cool to have that tangible disconnect. Again, the people we work with they're in a fog. We all have that inner voice inside of us. And the more stimulus and the more pressure we're under as entrepreneurs, the opportunities we have, the stresses we have, that voice becomes very, very, very quiet. And until you're in solitude and you shut it all off and you give yourself the permission and you feel worthy enough that it's not a guilt. It's, hey, I'm taking this 3 days to better myself, come back a better father or wife or whatever that might be. That's what I'm doing. And I'm doing it for that reason, deep inner work. And that's what we specialize in. And we've been doing for the last few years and hundreds of students, and it's phenomenal.
It's so good, man. It's an amazing idea, and so part of the reason why I love it is because it's what I was saying earlier. Like that's kind of where like my focus has been is on listening and trusting myself, right?
Yeah.
Listening to me. What is it that like what's going on in here? And it's like you said, you kind of like when you're just operating and you're going through life, like there's all of this noise coming from like I mean literal noise, right? But also just like ads on your phone and like distractions and like emails and phone
Okay.
calls and text. Like it's just so much.
Yeah.
And it's easier to just continue doing what you've been doing, right? It's easier to do that than it is to be like, what do I actually want? Because there's a good chance it's very different than what your life currently is, right? Which means it's scary. It's scary to be like, what do I really want? Because if you listen to it and you go, that is what I want, it's very different than what I have now. It actually is going to require a lot of change in your life. So, I mean, man, what you guys are doing is so good. So good.
Thank you, man. Thank you. Yeah, it's really, really cool. And we've had a lot of influence. The best thing, it fills our cup, and why we set out to do this. And we can talk a little bit about why it started, because I think that's really, really important. But our cup is filled from this. And like we've said, and we've always followed that path and that inner voice inside of us, follow passion, follow fulfillment.
Yeah.
And this business is the perfect culmination of that, where we literally are changing people's lives.
Yeah.
Speaking of imposter syndrome, our first client ever, older gentleman on the East Coast, wealthier than we were, a lot more wisdom than we had, a lot more experience.
And
went through our
massive
program,
podcast,
massive
He's
podcast.
coach already, been coaching for years.
Yeah.
The first client.
Author.
He was our first client to go
Wow.
through this program, and we had massive imposters. I just remember
Probably the worst case scenario to have for worst for a first because you
person.
gotta want to warm into it.
Yeah, yeah.
Buddy,
You're like somebody who's like a few steps behind where I am, maybe. Not like
This guy pays full price, and so we're like, oh man, this is wild. And he goes on his retreat. We hear a little bit of things. Hey, we know that what dates he's going. We know when he comes back. So we do a debrief coaching call, like a one-on-one call. Let them kind of go through their experience, and we fill in some gaps for him.
Yeah.
And why. And he came back, and one of the first things he said on the phone was, guys, Eli, Kyle, this changed my life. And from those couple words, that changed our life, because we realized that, man, we do have something. We have something very different, and something that is going to transform lives and impact people. So
holy cow.
That's what we do, man. And it's really cool. People find their purpose, they find their values, they find alignment, and
they find things they didn't think they were going to find.
That's
huge.
The
most part.
Rewire limiting beliefs. I mean, I think
through some of the prompts and exercises, they're like, I was not expecting this to pop up in my life.
Yep. Exactly.
At this time, and didn't realize that the reason why I'm operating this way is because there was some moment in my life that created this limited belief, and it just stuck with me deep in my mind and soul. And people are able to find those and connect them just through literally being able to turn everything off in solitude, sit in stillness, and finally that inner voice just starts to crank up louder and louder. And you just start to hear it, and you're like, oh, and you connect the dots, and the distraction is gone of just being able to focus and actually show up for yourself for a change.
See, what blows my mind about it is that it's like you're guiding someone through it, right? But they're answering the questions. Like it's been inside them the entire time. And so like so that's why I just love it so much, is because like we all have the answers inside of us already. We just don't realize it. And it's amazing because you guys like, okay, this is why I think it's amazing, because someone goes, someone else needs to help me with this. Right. And you guys go, sure, we'll help you. And you get it to them and they're like, oh, it was in me the whole time.
And that's what makes the program.
Salesman, you nailed it.
People feel so much more empowered because it's not like your typical coaching program or a therapist where you're being fed stuff the whole time to figure it. You're literally taken away at the end of the weekend or 3 or 4 days because you're like, wow, I did this. I figured this out for myself. And the amount of empowerment that comes out of that is amazing. And people they're so ready to thrive in the vision that they've always had for themselves, but they just didn't know how to get through all the slump that they've been going through and to actually have an excuse and reason to actually go after it.
Yeah. It's
Man, I
phenomenal.
love it.
It's really cool. So that's what we do. And what's really cool too is after the students go through their solo retreat, or once they're a part of our program, they do their one-on-one debrief, and then the mastermind. We do in-person retreats as well, but you have had to have gone through our program to get the invite to come out. And that is about camaraderie, mental fortitude, guest speakers, networking, campfires, drinks, dinners, and just really good bonding.
Yeah.
And it's really cool because everybody has a common ground.
Yeah.
The ice is already broken. We all
Yeah.
know, and we can ask everybody, hey, where'd you go on your soul retreat, James?
Yeah.
And then it's already there. And they already have similarities because they've been talking in this mastermind from virtual, and now it's in person. So it's a really cool structure, and we're very proud of it. And it provides a ton of fulfillment, which is why it's called Peak Fulfillment.
It's amazing, man. Like I'm so glad that you guys came on, because this is amazing. And now I have to go look into it myself, because I just think it's so cool. I think it's amazing. I feel like it really aligns with a lot of what I've been talking about, that it's like the answers are in you. And if someone needs help, like finding those answers within themselves, but then also like having the guidance afterwards and the connection with other people who've been through the same thing, it's like you just you continue to grow, and you continue to like support each other. I think, it's incredible. I love it. I love it so much.
Thank you very much. Yeah.
It's been awesome. We really enjoy it.
So you said before you wanted to talk about like why, and I'd love to hear about it.
Yeah, I'm gonna let you jump in, but I'm gonna let you jump in. I'll fill in some gaps, but
sounds good. Back in November 2018, I lost my home in the campfire in Paradise, California.
Okay.
My parents also lost their home, and I lost my whole community. And so if there was any piece of identity or ownership that I had in my life, it was completely gone. The day before that, me and my wife had our first miscarriage. And so having those two very, very impactful things happen to you in a 24-hour time is really burdensome and very hard to deal with. Yeah. But the way that my mind operates and needs to go is I need to move forward. I need to move quick. I need to be the backbone for my wife, my parents, and I had one kid at the time, and my community. And so what do? I suppress my feelings, and I work on everyone else, and I move forward in a way that it's almost like you're trying to go after the dopamine over and over, because you're trying to find the good every single day, but it's not there. And so whatever I could do to push forward harder to build stability for my family was where my focus was, not dealing with myself. And so over time, right, we were homeless for a while. We were rebuilding our lives, was trying to like help and support the business that we had. Those emotions just kept getting suppressed and never dealt with. And I got to a bottleneck in life, April 21st, 2021, where I didn't see the next day ahead of me. I was getting extreme anxiety from just like doing the dishes or trying to decide which route I was going to drive to the office that was only 2 miles away from my home. I could not operate in my mind anymore. I really couldn't see tomorrow, and I didn't see a purpose to life anymore. And so I got to a crossroads. I woke up on the 21st of April, and I said, I think this is it. I'm going to wrap up and call it a day and say that was a life that I lived and I did the best I could. And before making that decision, I just remember hearing something saying, challenge yourself. And so I did. And I said, well, if it's not making the ultimate decision in life that someone can make to stop it, what is it? And for me, it was escaping reality. There was no other way for me to be able to possibly deal with these emotions and hopefully see another day besides just escaping completely. And so I told my wife and I told Eli, I said, hey, I'm taking off to the coast for 3 days. I don't know what's going to happen. I'll come back. Don't worry. But like, there's a lot of stuff that I'm all of a sudden seeing these emotions come out that I need to work on and deal with. And so that's what I did. My wife came up with some like small journal prompts, a few activities. But the most important thing is I had support from the two most important people in my life. And it helped me give myself permission to say, okay, there's an issue and I need the permission to go take care of it. And so I came back completely transformed. I got a therapist and found out, I was diagnosed with severe anxiety, depression, and PTSD. And from that day forward, I just knew that there was so much more that I could do to make an impact in my life on other people's lives. But first, I need to show up for myself. And that was the first time in my life I'd ever done that. And so I went through all of that, and I didn't really think much more about it. I just kind of kept working on myself and started building the business and had another kid and all this different stuff. And Eli and I started getting burnt out in our business, and some stuff happened to him that he can go over, but encouraged him to go on a solo retreat, and it transformed his life as well. And eventually it turned into us becoming coaches because we got burnt out. We're like, what do we want to do in life, man? We always had this passion for helping other people at the end of the day. We looked at all the businesses we'd done, everything we were experienced, and it was helping people is what we really wanted to do. And then we started building the coaching business, and we're like, you know what? What if we were to dust off that shelf, that 3-day weekend thing that we did, and see if it would work for other people? And sure enough, we created a program around it. We built over 100 pages of workbooks, poured our life and soul into this. And from that day on, it was just, we felt fulfilled. We felt alive, and knowing that we can stop people from making that ultimate decision in life just by telling you, just go escape for a few days. It's inside you, but you may need some guidance. But more importantly, you need that permission to show up for yourself.
That's a crazy story.
Yeah. Thank you. It is crazy.
Yeah. It's wild, man. Like we said, you're writing a chapter and you're writing pages in your book, your book of life every single day. And that's a huge one. And that really, as we look back, it shaped massive resilience and massive grit for him. And it was really cool that he had gone through that, because then I went through some stuff and he was like, dude, do this.
Go take off, man.
And it helped. I went in a span of 2 weeks. I got cheated on in a divorce, ended in a divorce, lost my uncle, who was this kind of guiding light, and our business basically crumbled in 2 weeks. We had to lay off everybody and let everybody go. And that one really was the dagger, because I hate letting people down.
Mm-hmm.
And taking food off of their plate for their family was what crumbled me. And so the combination of those three things, I'm thankful that he went through what he did, because he gave me this idea to go on a soul retreat. And it really changed my life, man. And it gave me clarity. Why did this happen? A limited belief I had about myself, about this divorce, is like, dude, no, this is who you are. This is how you go through things. Challenge it and rewire that limited belief and show up better for other people, because they're probably going through worse stuff. They might be going through way worse stuff than you are. But what if you're able to give them that opportunity? And that's what our program is built for.
Yeah. Kyle, I have a question for you. So the things that you went through in that short period of time, I'm curious how you view them now. And this is like kind of probably outside of what you planned on talking about, but
I've never been asked that question before.
I really like to dig into kind of like just the nature of reality, and also like the nature of people. And so I guess I'm just really curious, like how you view those events now.
I definitely look at them of pinnacle points in my life that I had such extreme growth, but I didn't know it was happening. As you look back at those moments, it's funny that you say that. When I went on my solo retreat for the first time, I've been on a few now, because we try to do one every 6 months myself. But when I did that first solo retreat, one of the things that I wrote down was, I just wrote down like pinnacle moments. And on this list, there's like all these different defining moments in my life that I felt like was an identity of mine. Felt like there were times where I learned that progressed me towards a certain area. And so I've always looked at my life in that way, because those are times of growth, and how do I self-reflect and learn from them to move forward? And so I hold those moments very close to me. I celebrate them, to know that I am able to go through such extremes in my life, and having such strong mental health issues that I'm always dealing with. I always remind myself, look, dude, you went through all of this. You have the tools. You have the answers inside of you. You just have to slow down. But yeah, I really hold them dearly, but I also don't let them identify who I am.
Yeah.
And that's where a lot of people get stuck. And so have a traumatic time in their life, and they hold on to that identity and let it run their life for the rest of it.
It like becomes part of how they are. It's sometimes even how they introduce themselves. Like, it's kind of crazy how much people wear some of that stuff. Would you say that you're grateful for those things?
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
I have tremendous gratitude for the experiences I went through.
Interesting.
Um,
I
like
love what
you
you said. Oh, I'm
shift
sorry. I
your
didn't mean to cut
mind.
you off. Go ahead.
You're fine. You have to shift your mind in that mindset in order to continue growing. Otherwise, you go down a very dark hole. And
Totally.
that's where I was. I didn't see it. I saw it as, I mean, they were horrible things that happened to me,
Yeah.
right? Like you feel those emotions, you sit with them and see them, and you also need to like go through them. But if you can actually reflect on those emotions and what they're creating in your life, is that what I wanted to create? Right?
Mm,
Is that
yeah.
what I wanted to do? So
There was something you said before that I really liked was that it was you were growing and you didn't realize it.
didn't
It
realize
makes
it.
me think about like when you go to the gym
Mhm.
and you go real hard with the weights and the next day you just feel completely destroyed, and like it's growth, like that's literally what's happening. But like with the gym we can look at it and be like, I went to the gym, like that's
Right.
why I'm in so much pain. And for you, that's what I'm saying. I look at that situation, it's like, oh, okay, that's interesting. It's an interesting way to look at it, that we feel this pain but we don't realize that it's actually growth that's happening. That's what that pain is because we just went something through something where we worked out that this muscle so extremely hard. Like how could we possibly not be in pain? But the pain is an indicator of growth.
And you never know when that reflection is going to pop up in your life.
Hmm.
And typically it happens just at the right moment. Just right when you think you just don't see anything, you're just like, I see it. And for me, it took me escaping, complete solitude and turning off. And and what was interesting too is as I was driving to the coast, I didn't know what I was doing. Like I had some journal prompts, but I'm just like, I'm just gonna let the world deliver what it needs.
Yeah.
And literally, it's just like moment after moment was presented to me in such crazy ways. And I don't know to this day if it's because I was just open to receiving these things and
Yeah.
I was actually seeing these moments that I was maybe creating in my mind, or maybe it was something so much more than that. And everything was just aligned perfectly for me to
Mhm.
be able to continue forward in my chapter in life. And actually, my story is being written for the future of today when I didn't even know that's what was happening. All I knew is I was trying to save my life. That's it.
Yeah.
That's all I knew at the moment. And today I look back at it and I'm like, holy shit.
Yeah.
It was so much more than that, right?
Yeah.
And now what we have, what we've packaged, that is our calling, that is our purpose, that is the gift we were given that we want to gift to others.
Yeah.
Because there's so many people out there that need this, whether it's something as extreme as the shit that we went through, or maybe it's just a transition in life of, empty nest and you don't have any kids in your house anymore, or you're just transitioning careers.
Mm.
There can be so much noise and cloud just to be able to make those decisions that you need to make that you can't see it, and you just need to remove it and be able to go somewhere where you're not feeling so overwhelmed, and really be able to pace yourself at your own timing, and be able to just really reflect on what is it that I want in life, and is this where I need to go. That's why so
Yeah.
many entrepreneurs and business owners they gravitate towards this because they know they need that
Mm.
time. Because life's chaotic.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny what you said about the way things unfolded. That something I've been learning about lately is just this idea that we're in a simulation
Mm, mm,
and that that what works. And this is not, it's hard because I don't like, I've been through some stuff too. Okay. And so I don't want to like diminish anyone's experience. Right. But that essentially the idea is that the things that we experience are the things that we are allowing to experience.
mm.
So if you look at it from the negative side, you're kind of like, what, you're telling me I created a house fire, all this stuff, right? I'm not, so I don't have an explanation for it. Okay. But what I'm saying though, is that if you think about it, you got to a point where you were ready to allow this
Yes.
like clarity to come, and then like these things just unfolded in this like almost like magical way, right? It's just like,
Oh, true, true.
how do you explain it? You know what I mean?
Exactly.
But it's,
I was open to receiving it.
yeah, exactly. It's like you were open to it, and therefore it came. And again, it brings me back to the thing I said before. What I think is really cool is that you are essentially leading people to that moment. Like you're giving them that moment intentionally, where it's like, here, like have this same experience I had, where you bring yourself to a point where you allow it to happen, and then it does.
Yeah, it's strong. I love the way that you're looking at that,
I do
because
too.
that's a lot of people, they're like, oh yeah, well I've done that before. I've gone like on a quiet retreat or something, but most people are like, I don't know
what
what
you
I'm
do.
trying to get out of it. And
Mm,
they come back, they're like, It was nice to turn off. It was nice to look at the stars and get out of the city, but I still only have a few pages of journals, and people go through our program. They're like cranking 50, 100, 120 pages of journaling.
Damn, for
And,
real?
They
like,
just dump it, man.
what did
Whoa.
86
yesterday?
pages
She
in a
said
day.
86 pages in
Yeah.
3 days.
Holy cow.
It's wild.
Yeah. They just
It's pretty amazing.
starts flowing, man. Starts flowing when you're in solitude.
I wanted to ask you something about your house. There was something that I read recently, or that I was, I don't know, watching something, and they were talking about ownership.
Mm.
And because it made me think of it because you used the term ownership, and I was thinking how something I had heard essentially was that concept is just made up. That like we don't actually own anything, right? Like even if, like, let's say I own whatever, like
Right.
this Apple Watch I have sitting here. If I just disappeared from planet Earth, someone walked up here and took it, like, it doesn't, ownership means nothing. Like, it literally, there's no boundaries in the real world that create ownership. It's literally just a made up thing. Right. So I'm curious about like just your take on that, having experienced like everything you had, right? It was just
Yeah.
burned and gone.
Gone, everything. I
Did-
nothing.
question,
And
man.
if there was
Good
anything that I could look for with my parents, that was gone too. We had nothing. And what that does to someone is it grounds them very, very quickly. That material does not matter. It doesn't matter. Even, I mean, there was so much stuff that were just like, damn, wish I had that. Family heirlooms, memorabilia, things of value.
Yeah.
Not just like, in a currency, but just personal value that we lost.
Sure.
It just grounds you to know what really at the root of the day, what is most important to you. And it's the obvious things. It's family, it's love, it's being together with the ones that and doing things you actually enjoy in life.
Yeah. I have a question. Do you feel like right now, do you wish that you had those things?
No, not really. It's just so. I mean, this could be a whole rabbit hole. When you lose everything you own,
Yeah.
you buy everything you see afterwards. So we had a lot of money in the bank account because of insurance and different aid. And we bought everything we ever wanted. We filled our house up with things we think we needed. And it was all just like, it's nothing. We thought it would fill a gap that we had in our heart, in our mind, but it didn't. It was just a void that we were doing. And so it's like, I can replace a lot of that stuff, but it doesn't really do anything for me anymore. It doesn't.
Yeah.
There's family pictures. I suppose I'd love to see one last time, but
yeah. So it's interesting that you mentioned the pictures, because that was the next thing I was going to bring up. So like the concept of ownership, like this idea that I've been learning about is that everything that we own takes up some sort of space in our mind, right? Everything, because we like always, it's like, where was that thing? Like it's there. It's not just occupying a space in reality. It's occupying a space in our mind, right?
Crazy concept.
And because we can store so many things digitally now, that it's almost as if we're bogging ourselves down, because it has to occupy a space in our mind as well. So they were talking about like how like we have like thousands upon thousands upon thousands of photos just sitting in the cloud. Yeah. And now like some people like literally are just going and just completely erasing all of the photos they have stored, even though they're memories, but because it occupies a space in your mind.
It's crazy.
Interesting. I've never heard that. That's wild.
At our kids' school, it's what's interesting that you say this. At our kids' school, when they do like plays and stuff or performances, there's a very strict rule of having no cameras out, because they want that memory to live in your mind. They don't want it living on the computer or the phone, because they want you to be fully present, so that memory actually exists. Think about how many times the memory.
That's the best rule, dude.
We're watching it on our phone. That's why the memory exists. That's how we're remembering it. It's not actually because it's like I have very, very strong memories from when I was a child. Had nothing. The only way I could rewatch them is in my mind.
Yeah.
But when we're sitting there relying on this, right?
Yes.
You're not. You're not
You're
in the
watching
moment at
it
all.
through a screen.
You're watching it through a screen. You're
So
not actually in the
true.
presence and feeling the emotions you feel when I see my child deliver a line in the performance.
Yeah.
Otherwise, there's this distraction being like, oh, I'll have it on my phone.
Yep.
So what is that going to do for you if you're not actually like in the moment living it and like being able to like for it? So I always thought it was a weird role until I really started understanding it. I'm like, I get it now.
Yeah.
Because now all the experiences and stuff, it lives in me. It doesn't live on the
So
cloud.
funny. So my wife and I actually had that rule at our wedding ceremony, but that was more just because we had a photographer and we didn't want their phones up in the
Paying a lot of
picture.
money for those photos. Yes.
Yeah.
But that's a really good point, though. No, I love that. I love that. Thanks for just exploring a couple of those questions with me.
You asked
We
great
love it.
questions.
Yeah,
Great questions.
seriously,
Seriously.
great.
Great. Well, hey guys, I appreciate you coming on. I think we're coming up on an hour now. Is there anything else that you guys want to share or talk about before we wrap up?
I mean, if there was anything at all to anyone listening that you may have related
Yeah.
with, the feelings, emotions that we talked about, the experiences, you're dealing with some crap in your life and you just need to see and need some help to see through the other side, we're the guys to talk to because we got a really cool experience that you can go through.
Yeah.
And we're always open to just having conversations if you just need some help to process some stuff. But our retreat program it's very special. We invite anyone to check it out at peakfulfillment.co.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask. So if someone wants to find out about this, it's peakfulfillment.co.
That's it.
You've got it. Yep,
Amazing.
You can reach out to us there. Find us on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Eli Libby, Kyle Nelson. Those are a great spot to connect with us and learn more.
Podcast, the Peak Podcast.
Yeah.
What else can I throw at you?
Awesome. And if anybody is interested in the habit course that I talked about, the Discover Your Purpose course, those will be available. Well, the habit one is available now. The Discover Your Purpose one will be soon, but at howtobeaperson.co. Guys, thank you so much. Like, it's just such a great conversation. I'm so glad you guys came on.
You're the man. Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you, Juliana.
Yeah, have a good night, guys. Bye. Thanks for being here. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave a review or share it with someone who'd appreciate it. For everything I have to offer, visit howtobeaperson.co.